Are you frustrated about your sales performance? Do you have the right people on your team? Are you stuck at a routine in terms of business development? Sandler Training is a global leader in sales and business development training and has been creating solutions and accelerating the success of high achievers for over 30 years. If it's time to take your business to the next level, contact Sandler Training at 801-639-0488. 801-639-0488. Is your business struggling with the cost of an employer-sponsored health insurance plan? Learn how your business and employees may benefit from new rules under the Affordable Care Act. There's no reason for you to continue bearing this unnecessary cost. Call the experts at Summit Risk Management and Insurance, 801-671-2431. That's 801-671-2431. Learn more at www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
If your business doesn't have social and mobile marketing strategies in today's digital marketing place, then you're quickly getting left behind. Don't get left behind, get Social 5. Social 5's team of professional writers, graphic artists, and tech experts helps businesses with mobile, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, SEO, campaigns, contests, plus more. For a free consultation, go to social5.com. Don't be invisible in today's digital marketplace. Get Social 5.
Why is understanding your wealth and managing it important to you? Because you have worked hard to get where you are and you have goals for your future and maintaining your standard of living. At Foresight Wealth Management, we care about providing our clients with impartial advice and solutions that work with their goals in mind. Securities offered through Securities Service Network Incorporated, investment advisory services offered through Foresight Wealth Management. For more information, call 801-462-2200 or visit at www.foresightmanagement.com.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Good morning, Utah small business owners. Welcome to the Small Business Hour with your hosts, Mark Hunter and Chris Brown. It's time for your business to go from small to large.
Good morning, Utah small business owners. This is Chris Brown with my good friend Mark Hunter here for the Utah Small Business Hour here on K-Talk. And our whole objective is to help promote, support, and educate Utah small businesses who are really the drivers of the economy. I mean, 70% of the new jobs created in the state are from small businesses. Right. So you hear a lot about the big companies, but sometimes the small ones in the aggregate have a greater impact. And as always, we really appreciate our show sponsors. And who are our sponsors for this week?
Right. So Buy Monday, you can get a hold of them at buymonday.com. Mm-hmm. And Larry Myler, who's the owner or founder of that company, is an author of a book called Indispensable by Monday. And what he does is he helps employers to help employees make themselves indispensable to the company.
Sure, it's really about enabling employees at every level of the organization to kind of see the strategic vision and contribute to that.
Yep. And then, of course, Rob Wellman, who's awesome. He's the owner of Social 5, social5.com. They've got a great system for social media, helping small businesses manage their social media. I mean, everybody really needs to be out there now with social media. If you're not, it's like
we need to do a better job on social media.
Absolutely.
I mean,
so like
shame to say we do a lousy job on social media.
Well, we are actually using Social 5, so we'll start.
We need to use it better, though.
Yes,
because they're doing what they're supposed to do, and we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
Right. So, anyways, social5.com. Rob Wellman, great company. They help a lot of small businesses.
All right, so for today's interview, we've got Andrew Scivally with eLearning Brothers, a company here right in Utah County, and we're really excited to talk about what you guys do, but more generally, we're interested in talking about sort of the e-learning movement and why business, because we see a lot of universities now who are transitioning to online courses and everything else, but where electronic learning fits in for businesses.
Well, and we actually had them on our spotlight, which is how we were introduced to your company, and learned a lot about what you did, and that felt like this would be an important subject for us to have on the show.
Yeah, and Mark and I have both done a lot of live training for 15 years or so, thousands and thousands of people. And I think that it's hard for some of us who are used to doing that live training to transition to electronic methods. So can you just give us an overview of e-learning and how it's different and why it matters to businesses large and small?
Yeah, and thanks for letting me be here. This will be a lot of fun. So, really over the past decade or so, online training has taken off. It's been a lot of, for many years, it was just in the classroom. You had a lot of classroom trainers doing that. But there was a certain phase where, as the internet grew up and got bigger and all that, everyone started looking at that and thinking, okay, how can we do training online? And the big question in the beginning was, does it work? Right. Not technically work, but is it effective? Mm-hmm. Because we all trust and we all came up and grew up in the day and age when it was always you stand in front of a trainer, mm-hmm. or you sit there, right, and they're standing there and they're teaching you and they're looking at you and they're seeing that.
And they're engaging. And I think one of the things that people worry a lot about with online anything is, do you get that same level of engagement?
Absolutely. Well, and e-learning grew up and it's a mature market now, but for many years it had to grow up and say, hey, look, let me prove to the world that we're effective, that e-learning can work and it can show you a return on your investment and that people can learn from it. Mm-hmm. And so that's really where the industry, I think, has come from, coming up and saying, hey, look, you know what, we're a viable option. And now it's not even a question. I mean, companies do online training all the time, and we're beyond the question of can it work. We're now at the question of how do we make it better, more engaging, more interactive, and how do we make sure that people can really remember what we're training?
Well, and that's been kind of part of the problem is even if you have, say, like a PowerPoint or a PowerPoint with a voiceover or even a video of somebody,
watching a video is just not.
It's not very
exciting.
Yeah, it's not very engaging. Right. And so, e-learning has had to grow up. I mean, they've had to figure out the industry's had to figure out how to get the learner more active in the process.
Well, the trick is, though, there's so many different levels of e-learning, right? Some people will still look at something online that's read a bunch of text, look at an image, click next. I mean, that's boring.
Yeah.
Technically, it's still electronic learning. However, again, companies are maturing to the point now where it's like, hey, let's be done with this boring online training. Let's actually engage and interact with our users. And so let's get into things like stories and games and simulations and things like that. And with the new tools that are out there, you don't have to be a programmer to do all this stuff. There are tools that can help you do that. And you don't have to be, spend $100,000 to create these types of things. You can do it with new tools and with a little bit of creativity and some good writing skills, and you can build some really, really great training.
So when we talk, let's just talk about just real quickly the different approaches to electronic learning, just to kind of give the. So let me just tell you a little bit about my history. So when we first started doing online training about 10 years ago, it was basically all just streamed video of classroom stuff.
Yep.
And, it's kind of like what you were saying, just reading text. That's electronic, but it doesn't necessarily work that well. So if that's one extreme of electronic learning, what are the other ways that it can be presented?
So there's a few different models that we've seen for online training. A lot of universities will use distance education. They'll call it e-learning. Mm-hmm. And so there's different names for it, but distance education is what I call virtual classrooms, where you might have a camera on a trainer or a professor and it's getting streamed or broadcast to different locations. And they might have there's all sorts of cool software now where they can interact with each other and raise their hands and comment and all the video conferencing type stuff. Right. That's distance education. There's also a whole world of self-paced training, which is just me, the learner, interacting with content on my computer.
Okay.
And there's no one live there's not a professor on the other end of it.
And the advantage, of course, is you can do that anytime.
Right.
There's no time.
Right.
Issues.
I don't need to wait for the professor to do certain, class time hours. It's in the industry, it's called asynchronous is self-paced, and synchronous is your distance education.
Okay.
Well, it's also consistent content as well. I mean, whereas you could have a trainer who's training one group of people and they train in a certain way, the next time it's in a different way or different content.
And that's some huge advantages to self-paced e-learning. I mean, that's a huge one, consistency. So if you're doing a topic, compliance or something legal related, for example, and you know that you're held liable for making sure that you told every employee these 10 things. E-learning is amazing because you build the content one time, 100% consistent for every learner.
You can test them at the end.
Track it, you can test it. All the data is behind that.
Right.
The other part with trainers in the classroom or a professor, they're amazing and they have lots of experience and all that, but personalities are different. Sometimes they forget to say something or, whatever it is. E-learning, 100% consistent. The other big thing that we've run into through the years is when you need to update something and something changes, which today everything changes every day, you change it in one set of files and you push that out to the learning management system and people start taking that right away and they see the new content. If someone, a professor in a classroom or a trainer, you have to print new participant guides and new material and ship out those papers or whatever to that location. Then you got
retrain all the trainers.
Well, and all the people who took the class in the past, now they got this manual sitting on their bookshelf at home. How are you going to update that?
Right.
You can't. And there's no version control. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah. Well, revision control is a big issue for lots of reasons, but it definitely, you can see the benefits of electronic training for that. So with those, we've got kind of the synchronous and asynchronous models. Obviously, how rich the media is going to vary a lot from project to project. I mean, what do you see as, there probably isn't like a perfect mix, but what seems to be effective as far as using different types of media?
It's all over the board. One model that's really popular, especially with larger companies, or maybe not just larger companies, but one model we're seeing is just a blended approach. So it's, hey, you know what? We get a new hire, and let's say a new hire has to know A, B, C, and D. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you can get A and B done through some type of a self-paced course. Okay. So getting to know the products, maybe some compliance things, kind of the new hire orientation onboarding. That's fine, but then a lot of times they'll do that, and then they'll say, okay, the third day, however, I want you in a classroom with a trainer. And maybe now we're going to take all the stuff that you learned online and apply it to different situations. Mm-hmm. So they may do all their product learning online and then get in a classroom, interact with other students, and say, okay, let's run through some scenarios. I'll pretend like I'm Bob, and I'm going to interview you and see what customer or what products are good for you. And so you have a trainer in there trying to do a lot of the soft skills and trying to model certain things and trying to see who needs more help and all of that. Because so blended is big now.
That's probably one of the most challenging things is with electronic learning is getting that sort of feedback to see, particularly on like things like soft skills and where it's not just a multiple choice answer, where you're really trying to get a feel for how well they've absorbed the material.
Yeah, and that is a challenge with online training because you have to think of, well, a lot of the responsibility for learning is on the learner, right? So when you're training people, if I want to go click, 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 and I want to try and guess on every question, you can do that.
Right.
But so you have to somehow motivate that person and say, hey, you know what? This is why you need to learn this information. And you need to somehow put that responsibility and accountability on that person. And it's all about how you roll out the course. But if you know that you need to learn this, and then you have to show up in class for a day.
Demonstrate that knowledge.
And demonstrate it.
Yeah.
Or even demonstrate it to your manager.
Right.
So maybe it's not a big classroom setting, but you learn this and then you go back to your manager on the third day of, your new employment, and you have to go through a series of, something with that person. That's where the accountability comes in. And, but that's a challenge. It's a challenge to how do you make sure that someone learned it, really learned it and really paid attention.
Right.
And when I'm meeting, Chris and I are building an online training tool for small businesses, and this show is mostly to small businesses, and so a lot of small businesses they're not necessarily have the tools and resources to go out and build their own training tool and platform, and so we're trying to help build some generic. You'd mentioned onboarding and new hire, and so we've done some things of that nature to help small businesses, but this is, we're not talking about big companies that can use this type of technology. They certainly do, and I think a lot of them do mostly now, but we're going to start moving into the small business arena, and by simplifying the process as much as possible, you really can build some neat training tools to train your employees. And oftentimes I'll ask companies, I say, what do you do to train your employees? And they'll talk about, kind of taking them, hand-holding them, doing the mentoring process. But there's a substantial amount of training that can be automated.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the problem. So we're a small company, right? And we get new people that come in here, and I can't spend all of my time one-on-one training the new employees.
Right.
It's the same thing I said to the last 10 employees. So if we can get, some type of an online program in place, and it could be simple. I mean, you start with PowerPoint, and then you upgrade from there, and you start to do new things. But start with that stuff that's just, it's the same thing with every employee. It's the history, it's the products, it's sales process, whatever it is. And then, work from there. But again, you save so much time.
Well, I try to even tell people, look, get your iPhone or whatever your phone is out and videotape. If you've got someone that manufactures something a certain way, that's your best person at manufacturing that product or their process, get your phone out, video that. There's a way that you can incorporate that into a learning platform.
Right, and you got to think of e-learning as, a lot of us have sat down and we've taken different training courses where we click next and we read some stuff and we do a few things and click next. But broaden your thoughts there, because it could be a library of videos that you just log in and you say, hey, I want to watch this video and that video and that video, or a repository of games, or it could be a whole bunch of different PDFs and videos, and so it could be a library.
All kinds of content.
Yeah, because what you're seeing nowadays is, I want to know what I need to know right now, and I'm not going to sit through a course for half an hour to get to that one part. So if you're onboarding me, fine, make me sit through the long course, because I need to know that stuff. But if I need to know something right now and I'm in the middle of my job, give me a library, give me something I can search through and pick out the little pieces I need. And so we're seeing a lot of training now. It's bite-sized, small chunks.
Just really small things on how to handle a specific process or whatever the case might be.
And let me look at that course and jump to the parts that I need. Don't lock me into a flow. I'm an adult. I'm a big boy. I don't need to go through some of that. I need to know this piece. Let me jump to that. So we're seeing a lot of movement in that direction of just small, quick pieces.
It reminds me a little bit of lynda.com. I don't want to push somebody else's product, but they do a really good job on training on all different kinds of software. And it's not just software now, all sorts of things where it is, they've got it cut into all these tiny little segments. So if you're trying to figure out how to do something in a particular program, you go straight to that. You don't have to do the whole.
But then a small business can take that same concept and put it into their business. So
absolutely,
we want to customize this in a way that it's actually useful to your business.
Yeah, lynda.com is a great example. They do a fabulous job of this. But imagine going into your own company and videoing yourself doing like the 5 different steps of your sales cycle,
right,
or 5 different ways to overcome objections with your customers. Putting those videos out there, we're just kind of recording. Put them in a library and let your salespeople jump onto that and look at it. Maybe they can view it on their phone when they're sitting in the car and they've got 10 minutes before their interview. So there's different types of online training. The point though now is, use media. We all have phones. We can record anything. It doesn't have to be super high quality.
Right.
Sometimes that raw, kind of unedited video, sometimes that has the biggest impact.
Yeah, more human.
Because it's real. Yeah, they don't feel like they got something polished and it's the real deal.
Right, and I think people tend to get nervous when they or worry that it has to be this perfect presentation, and they just need to get over that.
Well, you're going to change it so many times, and you don't have the time or money to make it super polished, unless it's like one of those marquee courses that every employee is going through, and you really need to nail it.
Now we're getting close to our break point here, so when we come back, we definitely want to talk a little bit more about some of the platforms that people are using and some of the other things that they need to consider when they decide that they want to get into e-learning, because there's a lot of options. So right after the break, we'll talk about that.
As a small business owner, you have questions. Will my cash flow cover expenses? How do I get understandable, actionable reports about my business? What is the best option for raising capital? Clarity CFO is your finance partner that thinks like an entrepreneur. We're all about helping you improve cash flow, meet opportunities with confidence, and grow your business. Visit our website at www.claritycfo.com to receive a free review of your business metrics and to start getting answers to your questions. Cash flow, confidence, growth. Visit claritycfo.com today.
Small business owners and CEOs, where do you turn for objective counsel on your most critical business decisions? How do you assure your personal growth as a CEO? How do you get an unbiased review of your plans and strategic direction? What provisions are you making for perpetuation of your business beyond yourself? For over 20 years, CEO Builder has been the answer to these questions for many Utah CEOs. Join us for a complimentary forum or coaching session through our website at www.ceobuilder.com.
As a small business owner, you are not just building a business, you're building a legacy. Let the attorneys at Callister, Nebaker, and McCullough counsel and assist you as you navigate the legal complexities of organizing, financing, and operating a successful business. At Callister, Nebaker, and McCullough, we build, cultivate, and defend legacies. Your business, your family, your future. To learn more about how we can help, call 801-530-7300 or visit us online at cnmlaw.com. That's cnmlaw.com.
It's tough for small businesses to keep up with all the new regulations, the new healthcare law, employee handbooks, human resources, OSHA safety, employment discrimination and harassment, business insurance, workers' compensation. It is all so complicated. Most business owners are doing their best just to make a small profit. If there were only a simplified way to manage all of this, now there is. Summit Risk Management in Insurance can show you how. www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
Okay, we're back with Andrew Scivally, and right before the break, we were, talking about, all the different ways that a company can accomplish electronic learning. Don't get too hung up on production values. You're not making a blockbuster movie, although it's funny, I think that there's some, you see all these documentaries on Netflix nowadays that are kind of raw and,
Right.
They're edited, but it's not. I think sometimes people get too hung up on those production values, and they don't do something that could work. So when a company's looking at building online training, how do they go about it? Should they do it internally? Should they train their own people? Outsource? Tell me a little bit about those considerations and what a company should consider.
And one thing really quickly on the whole kind of raw, uncut feel. There's a fine line between something that's cheesy and just dumb versus something they can tell it's real and it's a little raw. So I think that's okay. We do a lot with building courses and all that and different things, and the visual appeal of your course and just making it look professional adds a lot of credibility to the course as well.
Sure.
So it needs to look nice and look professional because it does reflect on your company. But again, especially with video and stuff like that, you don't need to hire a broadcast quality company to do that. You can do a lot of that on your own. Just don't be cheesy.
Right. Don't make it into a joke. For years when I would do sexual harassment training, one of the things that would frustrate me the most is we'd get these videos and we'd play the video and there would always be these chuckles in the crowd because they were always so cheesy.
Needs to be real.
And so when we developed our own online sexual harassment training, we just decided not to do any of the little vignettes that people always include because that's what always is cheesy, because there's no way that you can act out sexual harassment and not have it look like a joke.
Right.
It's just something that can't be done. And so we just said, forget it. We're not going to do those vignettes. We're going to talk about what it is. We're going to provide the information, but we're not going to do that thing that's going to get laughs because then the training loses its effectiveness if people are laughing at
Everyone's laughing, right?
Yeah.
So, but you were talking about how to some things to think about when you're starting to build your online training or things you need to do. There are various ways to do that. So one way is just build it internally. So use the resources that you have and try to build it internally. There's lots of good tools out there, and you don't have to spend tons of money to get started doing that. So build it internally. And there's a few things to think about there that at that point. Or, of course, you can hire a third party or a vendor. There's lots of companies that will help you with different phases of it, whether you want them to help you organize the content and lay it out on paper and then bring it to life. You want them to do the whole thing for you, or maybe you come to them with a a Word document or a PowerPoint and say, hey, here's the flow and here's most of the content. Now I just need you guys to do all the visuals and make it come to life.
Yeah.
And there's lots of vendors that'll do that. Some of the models with that are, maybe you have 10 of these things you want to create. Well, let the vendor build the first one and kind of build out the frame for you. Give you all the files and say, hey, you know what? Build it on your own now. Strip it out. Use our, kind of our template. Use our visuals. And so you can save a bit of money.
I guess one big issue if you do that is you want to make sure that you get the source material and you're not just getting a final video or something that you can't make changes to.
Two things, though. You want to make sure your vendor uses a tool that you can purchase and you want to buy and use internally.
Right.
So a Captivate or Lectora, Storyline, something like that. Make sure they use that tool.
This is the computer software program, just for our listeners.
Right,
so
right.
Understand.
So, if your model is, hey, I want a vendor to build one or two of these things for me, and then give me the source file so I can do it on my own. Make sure your vendor's not using like an in-house proprietary tool that you don't have access to use.
Right.
Because some will do that because they want to hook you in.
Sure.
Or they believe the tool's better, or maybe it's both, right? But again, if your model is, I want to have them do something kind of templated for me and build it internally and maintain it myself, with edits each month or whatever, make sure they're using one of the big tools that you can purchase.
Yeah. And that you get the source material so that you're able to make those changes.
Every contract, when you build training with companies, you should always get the source material.
Right.
Period.
It brings up an interesting question on source material, though, and we have had different folks on who have brought this up. We had an intellectual property attorney on our show, and sometimes you may hire a vendor to create something for you, not just online training, but a marketing video, a website, whatever the case might be. And some of the material that they use in there, they didn't actually have the right to use. And, so, I mean, this isn't really an online training problem. This is a problem anytime you're hiring someone to create content. But make sure that not only are you getting the material, but that the material that you're using in your training is legit licensed content. It's not stolen from somebody else. So what are the other considerations? So we can do it in-house. We can hire somebody to do it. We can kind of hire someone to start it, and then hopefully we can take it over. What other models are there?
I mean, those are probably the biggest models that we're seeing. So if you decide to do it internally, obviously you could either take someone you have and kind of mold them into that position, or go find someone on the market, and hire them and bring them internally. But if you do that, some things you need to think about. If you're building training, there's usually 3 roles that I put on an e-learning team. And it might be one person that does all 3, but you have your instructional designer who will take content and logically design it.
Script it.
Right, script it. They write content. They say, hey, it's going to be A, B, and C, and they build it on paper, really, kind of a storyboard. Instructional designer. Then you have your visual designers, and then you have kind of a programmer or a developer. So you may have project managers, other stuff around it, but those are kind of the key roles. So you need someone to design it on paper and think through the actual logical flow and kind of how does a learner learn the best.
Now, is that a subject matter expert, or is that someone who's sort of, subject agnostic? They're getting the content from somebody else. How does that work?
So sometimes it's the same person, but you always need a subject matter expert or let's call a SME. You need someone out there that says, okay, I know this content inside and out, and I can tell you exactly, what kind of stuff needs to be in a training course. But then you need another person, usually removed from that can say, hey, you know what, Mr. Expert, I know you know a ton of stuff, but only these 2 things really need to be taught right now because, man, that other stuff is once in a blue moon. And there's no way I'm going to be able to fit that into a person's head right now.
And it's so complex or arcane or whatever the case might be.
I need to write out the steps. You explained it, but I need to physically put that in a course and so someone can make sense of it.
Right.
So you need a SME, you need an instructional designer, then you need a developer to actually push the buttons on the software to bring it all to life. Someone that's got a little bit of visual design skills. And at any point in that process, you can bring a contractor in to help with that.
What are you talking about? That's what I do. I do all 3.
Okay. I'm lousy at making things pretty. So those are the roles. And like you said, it could be, the same person doing all those roles.
Yeah.
But
and many times for a small company it is. Or you hire a contractor to help with a certain piece.
Right.
So maybe you don't want to outsource your entire course, but you go and you get a contractor to say, hey, help me with the instructional design piece. Or, you know what, I got it all ready, but just go and push the buttons in the tool to help me build that.
Right.
Bring them on site for a couple months or, you know.
So we talked a little bit about some of the different tools for developing online courses. If we could just touch on those real quickly. A lot of these are programs that people have probably never heard of if they've never had to do this. About 20-something years ago, I remember using Harvard Graphics to try and do some that wasn't online training then. There was no online. But it was electronic training, we'll say. There's a lot more sophisticated things than that. So what are those tools?
So the big ones right now, so Adobe Captivate is a great tool for building online training. Captivate 8, that's the current model or the current version right now. The biggest thing about Captivate 8 is the mobile content ability. So you can actually, it's an amazing tool if you want to build mobile content. So content they'll have on their tablets, phones, as well as a desktop or laptop.
Right.
The key feature of that is it's responsive mobile content. So the content you see on your laptop can be different from the content they see on a phone or a tablet. So it will actually respond and do different things based on the devices being played on.
So that it can work a little better for that type of device? Is that
a lot of times on a tablet, you want bigger buttons, you want less visuals that are interrupting things. So right now it's the best tool that's doing mobile responsive. That's kind of one of the big players.
Okay.
And it's not, you can run a subscription model on that. It's not part of the Creative Cloud,
right?
But it is a separate subscription, and I think it runs like $30 or $40 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good price.
Now, I mean, for people who have never seen something like Captivate, is there anything you could compare it to give people an idea of? I mean, in a way, it's a little bit like PowerPoint. You make slides, but it's a lot
slides
different.
And it goes in a flow, but you can branch things off and create buttons and things that pop up and things like that. So I mean, maybe PowerPoint on a lot of steroids.
Okay, there we go.
But that's Captivate 8's a big one. Lectora is a good one. It's really good for mobile as well, but it's a lot more of a, if you're building some training that you know has to be truly customized and you need to be able to get into all the nitty gritty of it, maybe connect it to some other systems and do some kind of funky stuff, Lectora is completely customizable and a really good tool for that. And then another really popular one right now is Articulate Storyline. It has a PowerPoint-ish feel to it, so you kind of feel comfortable with the ribbon in there. But it's a popular one. All these have different models for pricing, all that, but those are the big three right now: Captivate, Lectora, and Storyline. And those are what I would call custom development tools for training courses. The other whole section is all about PowerPoint plugins.
Sure.
If you seriously just want to use PowerPoint and you're really good at it, but you want to boost PowerPoint up a little bit and do some other, like create navigation and insert some interactive type things.
Things that it just doesn't do on its own.
Yeah. So you want to boost PowerPoint a bit, use a PowerPoint plugin tool like anything with the word presenter in it. So Articulate Presenter, Adobe Presenter, iSpring Presenter.
Okay.
And those will run you anywhere from $200 to $1,000, something like that.
But those allow you to work in a somewhat familiar environment. But
it's just a tab in
features.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
Now, we should talk a little bit about what companies are doing to make their training more engaging, because I think that's important.
Yeah, and that's really the niche that we like to play in. And companies right now, I mean, you're doing things like build scenarios. Like anyone can read text and click next, but think through it and say, hey, this is a sales scenario. So present them with a customer with issues or a customer with a background. Say, which product would you recommend? And let them read through a few different things and do a scenario based on that. And all these tools I mentioned can do branching, which means you can take your learners down different paths, which is fabulous. Take them down a path that leads them to no sale. Take them down a path that leads them to an angry customer, whatever it is.
Right.
Gaming's big. People like games. For a long time, corporations are thinking, that's cheesy, games are dumb. Well, I bet if you go to every employee in your company that has a smartphone, they probably have some games on there.
Right.
People like them.
So build in content into the games that are related to what you're trying to teach them.
I mean, build a Jeopardy game. Build in your product questions into it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I really like about eLearning Brothers is you guys have built these templates and make it so easy to kind of plug and play. I mean, you have to understand the program. Like I use Captivate 8. and you have to learn that program or
Yep.
understand it. And it takes a little bit of time to figure it out, but man, you can really make some impressive training.
That's our whole goal is e-learning, online training can be so boring, but let's make it more inspiring, interactive, and engaging. And we'll go into your tools, those tools I mentioned, build really cool stuff in it, and then give you those source files and let you learn, see how we did it, build it from there. And it can be so much more fun and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to look, it can look nice, look professional, but it can still be fun.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the key takeaway is that there are a lot of different paths. There are a lot of ways that you can go to start creating electronic, learning tools. A lot of it comes down to, what you're comfortable with, how big of a project you want to take on yourself,
right?
And, what kind of tools are you going to be able to bring in? Because you're going to need some tools. You're not going to be able to do it just with PowerPoint. You're going to have to do something, but there's a lot of options out there. If real quickly, could you just tell us about somebody who crashed and burned horribly on e-learning? Any great stories that you've got of like
I'm
really
sure there's lots
bizarre,
of
awkward training or
ugly
something?
e-learning we've seen out there, right? It's those dumb ones where you pull it up and they want you to read like a whole page of like 12-point font text,
right?
And click next, and it's got a picture of just a guy on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
That's dumb. We're way beyond that now,
right?
And even if you're just in PowerPoint, you can still build some cool stuff. So just think through it, reach out for some help, and
think of what you'd like to see.
And you can do the click-through stuff. You can incorporate video. We use eLearning Brothers, their system, and it just makes it so much easier by using those templates.
And just real quickly, anybody who wants to check out your stuff, what's your website again?
So elearningbrothers.com.
Okay.
And, there's lots of great stuff out there, great blogs about these tools, examples of stuff. So tips and tricks.
Yeah, a lot of cool ways to get into it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to just talk a little more about this sometime.
It's time for this week's First Utah Business Spotlight.
Mark Hunter here with Small to Large, and we're sitting in the paint booth of Rick Warner Body Shop here with Stan Roberts, the owner of the company. So Stan, what would you say makes Rick Warner Body Shop stand out, or what makes you different from your competitors?
Our people. I think our people make a huge difference in the whole line of collision repair and the whole process that goes with that.
So Stan, what is it about your people that really makes them different?
I think we employ a quality person that's been with us a long time. Most of our guys have been here a long time. And I think that their training, their personalities, we have all come together over the years, and we have learned to do what we do very well.
And I noticed on the wall there were a lot of certifications. Tell me about that.
There are a lot of qualifications that our guys have to go through. We're ICAR trained, ICAR certified. Some of our guys are ASE certified. And we do chief training, which is our frame rack. And then we do a lot of our paint training here with our painter and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So if my car needed a repair, how long would I expect for it to take to be repaired?
Obviously, depends upon the size of the collision. An average collision is $1,800 to $23.
Okay.
And 3 to 5 days.
All right. And then so if I have insurance versus if I don't have insurance, is there a difference there on the cost?
Obviously, we try to help somebody that's doing a customer pay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to help them with used parts. We'll try to give them a discount, that kind of stuff.
Well, speaking of used parts, so if I do have insurance, do I have a choice? A lot of times insurance companies kind of want to tell me what to do on parts. How does that work?
You do have a choice. It's your car.
Okay.
You're the ultimate owner of the car, and the way it's repaired is totally up to you. And you can specify no aftermarket parts, you can specify no used parts, and you want original equipment, which we call OE parts.
Okay. So does the insurance company, do I have to go to the to the repair shop that they dictate to me, or do I have a choice in that?
Again, it is your car.
Okay.
You have the choice. of having your car repaired by who you would want it repaired. A lot of times the insurance companies have designated repair shops that they use, and these shops will give them a discount on parts and labor, that kind of stuff. So, but you still have that choice. Several shops around the area, us included, offer a lifetime guarantee on
I was going to ask you about the warranty. Do you have a warranty?
We have a lifetime warranty on our repairs.
Okay. Does that extend to, I mean, that's just for the person who owns the vehicle, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about your business. How long have you been around? Obviously, you said you've been in 2 different locations. I was curious, by the way, in 1984, was that when the flood came down State Street?
Yes, it was.
So you're right down the street here.
We were right here when that happened, yep.
Throwing sandbags out. So.
And we have survived the light rail construction,
Okay.
which was very, very tough to do.
Oh, I'm sure that was. Okay. And then I know you have some value-added services that you provide. I know one has to do with being able to monitor and watch. You can actually go onto your website and see
Yes.
pictures of the progress of your vehicle. Tell us about that.
We've got a great tool called Auto Watch that we monitor every day, and we post pictures to the website, and you can go in, put your repair order number in, go and see pictures of your car in progress, which is a great tool. It saves phone calls for you, for us, for everybody involved.
Yeah, watch it along the way. So,
And we offer pickup and delivery when,
oh,
by scheduled appointments, that kind of stuff.
that's a nice feature. So, relative to that, let's say I needed a rental car or a loaner. Is that something?
We'll help you set all of that up. We
Okay.
can set it up with either one of the rental cars and companies and take care of all that and help you get through all that process.
That's great, because that can be a hassle sometimes. So, and then if I have to come into the shop, what do I need an appointment to come in? How does that work? Do I just show
You can
up?
come in. You can come in anytime for an estimate, and we'll write an estimate on the spot for you and give you an idea of how long your repairs will take. We typically like to order parts in advance, so we like to see the car, write an estimate, schedule you in. We buy the parts in advance and get you right through the shop, which is called cycle time.
Okay. And I noticed with estimates, I think that's a good idea. Does sometimes it ever go over and above the cost of the estimate? Or?
An estimate is just that. It's an educated guess.
Okay.
We try to get as close as we can, but there again, it's just an estimate. And should we go over, we definitely check with the owner and the insurance company and get it pre-approved in advance.
Dan, tell people how they can get a hold of you. Do you have a website?
We have a website that they can go to, rickwarnerbodyshop.com. We also have 24-hour towing that we offer that you can get to us through a phone call at any time.
And what is your phone number?
801-363-4400.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Stan Roberts, the owner of Rick Warner Body Shop. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
There are 5 key questions every successful business owner asks every day. How can we increase innovation? How can we reduce operating costs? How can we grow our sales and market share? How can we create new products and stay cutting edge? And how can we improve our cash flow? By Monday's Howcanology web app answers all of those questions by empowering your employees to become valuable, producing entrepreneurs. Contact By Monday at 801-225-1600 to learn more about Howcanology.
As a small business owner, I have struggled with controlling my workers' compensation costs. Some of my injured workers have really taken advantage of the system, costing me an arm and a leg, no pun intended. I finally found someone who can help, Summit Risk Management and Insurance. They have saved my company thousands of dollars on my insurance costs and have improved my safety program. I recommend them to any business owner. www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
If you own a small business, you've experienced problems with technology. Lost files, server crash, blue screen of death. It always means one thing, an IT nightmare that keeps you from running your business. IT Now keeps those IT nightmares at bay. IT Now is the leading provider of professional IT services for small and medium businesses. Call IT Now today for a free network evaluation, and soon you could be nightmare-free and experience the bliss of things running as they should. 801-562-8778.
Phil, your golf game is amazing. Where do you find the time?
I've been using ADP for my business, the world leader in payroll services. I manage my payroll, retirement plan, and HR all on my iPad, mobile app, or with a quick phone call. It's easy and really affordable.
I'm just so busy. Sounds great. How do I get a quote?
Call Dave at 800-422-3705. He's been with ADP here in Utah for 15 years.
Thanks. That number was 800-422-3705.
Welcome back. Here's our second Utah Business Spotlight for the week.
Mark Hunter here with Small to Large, and today we're meeting with Heidi Willis, who's the co-founder and president and CEO of Creative Expressions. So Heidi, tell us a little bit about your company and what you provide for your customers.
We basically, Mark, have a marketing company. We do our own in-house embroidery and commercial screen printing and other imprinting abilities that we have in-house, which makes us kind of stand out from some of the other ones in the state of Utah and around, because we do have our own production facilities. I started it in my home 33 years ago.
Nice.
With one little machine and a little 8-foot square room in my basement, thinking that I could make scads of money in my basement. It was going to be wonderful. And found out then that the one thing that was less credible than a woman in business 33 years ago was a woman in business in her home. So we learned a lot and have come a long ways, and we're one of the largest and are pretty proud of what we do. And we provide all of the marketing products and ideas and different things that you would have to promote your business, your event, or your product. Things that you hand out with your name on it, things that you give at trade shows, your embroidered shirts and jackets that promote your brand.
So you do all the apparel as well.
Yes, all the apparel as well.
And then gadgets, golf balls, and things
anything
with your
that
logos.
you can imprint, we can do.
Okay. I imagine there's a lot of companies in your industry that outsource to other countries like China, and where maybe the labor might be a little bit less.
Oh, that's always been a problem, particularly with this one. A lot of our products actually are made overseas and offshore, and then they're brought into the States and sold. But we have to compete with 35 cents an hour, and that's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
And we have, unfortunately, lost a lot of our clients over the years to outsourcing down into Mexico and over there. But it also happens that they come back as well, because they find out that their quality isn't always the same. They can't guarantee product coming when they need it.
Yeah.
Delivery and things like that. So.
Okay, well that's good, and it's nice to see a company, especially in your industry, try to keep the jobs here locally, the money here locally, to help the local economy.
We have tried very hard to keep it in Utah.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in that, and been a promoter of local Utah and all of the things that they stand for.
So, as a woman business owner, have there been issues that you've had to deal with, and what's it been like to be a business owner but also a woman business owner?
It's been challenging, Mark. It really has. At the very beginning, you couldn't go to the bank and get a loan to save your life unless you had your husband to co-sign, and so the credibility that a woman had was very, very minute. And it's been interesting to see that change over the years, and as I have really supported women in business, because they have become entities of their own, really,
Sure.
and done very well. But it was particularly doing it in my home, because I would go and try to get business from a company, and as soon as they found out that I was actually in my home, it was just a wall.
Yeah.
Don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And so that has changed too. There's a lot of home-based businesses now that do very well.
Yeah, there really are, and I think that's become more acceptable.
It has.
And so that's helped small business as they've gotten through the difficult times with growing their business and getting cash flow.
And it's helped a lot of women as they've been able to stay home and still raise their family, but be able to have the credibility of having a home-based business and have it do well.
Right. And not to bash online stuff, but some of these services are kind of nice to have face-to-face human interaction rather than just over the internet.
Absolutely. In fact, we really worried when the internet first came out and really got involved in our industry, that we would lose a lot of our business. But there is something to say about coming in and touchy-feely,
Yes,
and they can
absolutely.
see that pen and see how it writes, and instead of ordering 500 of them, and then they don't work when they get to the trade show.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that goes along with that is that we have a very quick turnaround. We have the ability to do something in a couple of hours because we have it here, and instead they've got to wait for that order to work through the online process, and they may get it,
And it might be going across overseas.
Exactly, and they're waiting
shipping.
120 days, whereas we can turn those very quickly here.
Okay, that's great. Do you have any advice for other businesses or other women business owners, startups? Or
The very biggest advice that I could possibly give anyone is to know what you're doing before you get into it.
Yeah.
Because so many people, and myself included, you jumped into business without realizing what it all entailed. You go back to that old adage, you may be able to groom the dog, but you have no idea how to keep the books. And if you get to all of that information behind you so that you really are prepared to run a business so that it doesn't run you, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk to companies about is, you learn, you go through college or you get whatever your education is, but the real world is different.
It really is.
Running a business is different than what maybe you were trained in college.
I had no idea when I first started that your balance sheet had to match your taxes. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Things like that you have no idea, and then you start realizing all of those things and how important it is to not only organize well, but to keep it organized so that you know where everything is and you're on top of everything, and you don't worry about waiting 3 years to finally do your taxes when you should be doing it all the way along.
And there are resources for small businesses out there.
Absolutely.
They don't have to rely on their
A
own.
lot.
So, and that's one of our focuses too. So tell us about you're a family-run business. Is that right? So how's that been for you?
It's been a challenge, and it's been a joy. And I think it's been a challenge as much for me as it is for my kids. As we learned together. But it's been a wonderful adventure and a great journey. I've had all of my kids and their spouses here at one time or another as they were going towards their future and what they were doing. And we have learned that the only way you can keep a successful family business going is with communication. And if you don't have it, it soon starts showing in where you're going.
Yeah.
But a lot of patience, a lot of understanding. But it's also been great because you can't find employees like your family. They're right there and they're with you and they have the same kind of feelings and
kind of have skin in the game a little bit.
Exactly. But then it's also, wow, Mom, can I take the day off?
Yep.
So there's a little bit of all of it, but it's been wonderful. But it's something that you have to decide ahead of time what you're doing. You have to put your rules down, your criteria, and really everybody understand what the game is all about before you get into it, because it's kind of hard to change the rules in the midstream.
Yeah, yep, especially with family. So, well, great. Thanks for sharing your success story with us today. And Heidi Willis, we recommend other companies look to you when they want to promote their business.
Absolutely.
Heidi Willis with Creative Expressions. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, those were some great business spotlights as usual. And just to kind of recap from our interview a little while ago, we had Andrew from eLearning Brothers, and I think as Mark and I mentioned before, that this is a product that we use and have been happy with.
We're really learning this system and how to make online training with eLearning Brothers, and we've been really pleased to work with them.
Yeah, and it's challenging, but it really has made it easier for us to create some cool interactive content for the projects that we work on.
Yep.
And I think that as more and more companies move their training online, they can learn a lot from Andrew and his people on ways that they can make that training more effective. And then our business spotlights, we had Rick Warner Automotive, and
I liked how you can monitor your vehicle as it's being repaired.
Yeah, that's cool, and it is interesting to hear that sometimes you do have some input into that, and it may not actually cost that much more to get it done the way you wanted it done, as opposed to whatever the least expensive repair might have been.
Yeah, and then Heidi with her company, how like being local and not outsourcing it to China. That's great.
Yeah, and as she mentioned, some of the materials come in from overseas, but the fact that they're still employing local folks to turn that stuff around really quickly,
and provide the kind of customer service that you can't get from a catalog or online or.
Well, I was just fascinated about her like getting a loan and what that whole process, 30 plus years ago, and how that worked out for her as a woman-owned business. So.
Yeah, I think today we kind of take for granted, especially guys, that how easy it is to start a business. And we don't consider, one, how hard it was in the past, and particularly if you were a woman.
Well, and we should talk about our workshops that help both men and women.
Of course, whoever you are, our workshops can be a big help in getting your business started or taking it to the next level. And check out the website, www.smalltolarge.com, and you can learn more.